Labaron Philon is a 6'4", 177-pound guard. He's definitely more than 177 pounds now. He has legitimately gained weight and gotten bigger and stronger over the last year. He's a November 24th, 2005 birthday, which means he's 20. He will turn 21 about a month into his rookie season, and his rookie season will be his age 21 season. He spent 2 years at Alabama. Over those 2 years, he was a very consistently efficient player from his sophomore season. He averaged 30.9 minutes in 33 games, averaged 22 points on 50.1, 39.9, 79.8 shooting splits. Really, really efficient basketball player. He grabbed 3.5 total rebounds, 0.6 offensive rebounds, so better than Michael Brown Jr., but not crazy ton better. He averaged 5 assists, 1.2 steals, 0.2 blocks, and 2.5 turnovers. Had 1.6 fouls per game. Some more advanced stats here. For a few more advanced stats, so he had a 10.3 box plus minus, 124.3 offensive rating, 29.9 usage rate. Really efficient offensive player. Like I said, 58.5% effective field goal rate and 62.6% true shooting. For a guard, especially a guard who played with the ball for a lot of his possessions, those are really good numbers. 1.9 offensive rebound rate and 9.2 defensive rebound rate. Not great. I'm not going to say he's some great rebounder. He's not a great athlete overall. We're going to talk about that. But a 31.9 assist rate to a 14.8 turnover rate. That's a 2.0 assist turnover. Those are really good numbers. Alabama, is kind of known as this like offensive powerhouse of a team. But they did not run like a lot of stuff. It's not like they were like, here, let's run something nasty where LeBaron can get an assist. A lot of those assists are the dirty work. He had to make the play. And so, not all assists are created equal. And I would say his assists generally are in the higher echelon. He had a 0.5 block rate, a 2% steal rate, 40.8 free throw rate. Those are all solid numbers. Overall, the athletic numbers are not bad. 5 dunks. With that 40.8% free throw rate, that's pretty solid. I think a lot of that free throw rate is grifting, which is good. It's good that he grifts. He can create downhill advantage and get to the paint fairly consistently, but I would not say he's elite at it. But he shot 65.7% on 172 close twos, 44.5% on 110 long twos, and again, 39.9% on 203 three-point attempts. That's 10.7 three-point attempts per 100. He was just an insanely efficient scorer. I mean, who also created a lot of plays and stole the ball. Like, I would say statistically, other than the rebounding, there's a pretty bulletproof case here. Coop, any notes on Philon's statistical profile?
I think the big thing is that like this guy just ridiculously efficient. We'll talk about the process of how he got there when we get further in. But you can see that this was a guy who just really was like a true engine for a really strong Alabama offense. The assist to turnover stuff, always solid. I think the turnovers aren't like so low to where it just kind of shows that he's like missing so many passes, right? Like he's not getting into the paint and then I gotta make the safe pass, trying to keep his turnover numbers low. Free throw rate is solid for a guy who took so many threes and so many like non-paint 2-pointers. He took like a combined 315 of the both of those from Bart Torvik. Got to the free throw line, shot 200 free throws compared to like 90 last season. You can really see that this is a guy who like stepped up his game in a huge way. I think if you had told me that freshman Philon was going to be this good as a sophomore, I would have thought you were crazy. I liked Philon a lot last season as like a connective swing, right? I think I was the highest on us when we did talk about Philon last year. And I just loved him as like a guy whose athleticism and his quick twitch like allowed him to fill in the gaps. And he has transformed himself into an incredible scorer. He's more efficient, like by a huge margin, despite taking tougher shots, despite being like the lead guy. Just a really, really fun growth and development from the Philon here.
Yeah. I was low on Philon. I do think I was overly locked in on what other people were saying he was and not doing a good enough job just bringing my own self to it. I was like, he's not actually that good defensively. I think a lot of the comps for, who people were saying he was not great. And as a late, as projected mid to late first round pick, like that's not what I was looking for. I think this year I'm going to do a better job contextualizing who he actually is. And who he actually is just a really, really high level pick and roll player, just an elite pick and roll player against a coverage. Again, I will talk about my concerns in a little bit, but I want to start with the positives. I just think his pace, his ability to keep his handle alive. He does have that in contrast to Michael. He does have that kind of slinky handle you want for guys that are built like this to just kind of like keep his handle and maintain advantage through tight space. And even though he's kind of little, like he uses his physicality well to hold space. He's gotten stronger since last year, but I mean, just does some really, really good things in pick and roll. His ability to slow down and let a Gortat develop is so good. Like part of why he's shot so well at the rim is because one, Alabama plays in good spacing, and his team was really good at setting those Gortat screens, and he was great at just letting them develop. He created a lot of wide open half court layups in pick and roll by just being patient and understanding angles. He has a lot of tricks in his bag as like a 2-foot player, like lots of shot fakes and touch shots. He's a great mid-range scorer, both in his out the dribble jumper, but his floater game, I thought it was really, really effective. The numbers on that are not crazy. 43.8 on 73 runners is good. But if you go back, his freshman year was at 59.5% on 42. High school senior, 33.3% on only 24. 17U AAU, 46.9% on 32. He's a really good floater shooter. Like really, really, it reminds me a little bit of Emmanuel Quickly when he was at Kentucky. Just like this ability to just get into the lane and just get into that shot. Really, really good. There's just a lot I really like there. I think he's a good, simple decision maker. Not some like crazy elite passer, but he lets plays develop. He finds guys well in pick and roll. I think if he's going to play against coverage, he's a really, really good pick and roll player who also has some juice as a transition scorer. He's not like a crazy athlete. I think that's going to color a lot of this conversation. In fact, I would say he's probably slightly below average to maybe even really below average for the NBA. But he just makes the right read a lot. He has good active hands defensively that can, help him get steals and push. He throws the ball ahead. He's not selfish. Like all the things you could want from just like a steady point guard, I think are kind of there. Do you agree with me, Coop? Is that kind of the realm, where your head is with him right now?
I agree that he's not a great NBA athlete. I think that he is a great athlete in like certain ways, right? I think he's got insane bend. I think he's just quick and really twitchy and reactive in like a way that we've kind of lost in the NBA. I do think that there's so many teams that have just lost the ability to have a decent ball handler on the floor. Like there's, the Rockets, half their season went kaput because they don't have someone who can dribble, right, to the level that a guy like Philon can. There's a lot of teams that really just struggle with ball handling, like the Magic, Paolo is legitimately their best ball handler. And I'd say he's plus for a 6'10" guy, but you can't have a guy that big be your best ball handler to get the ball up the floor. I think the fact that I think that the handling and like the ability to get into the teeth of like a set defense and like drag guys out, pull them around, and he handles pressure so well. That was, I think, my biggest thing with Mikal is if you can get a guy into his handles, he just like panics and he's going to throw the ball away. You cannot speed up Philon, but Philon will speed you up. He'll slow you down. He'll start you. He's got step throughs. I think there's a world where he's so shifty and like good enough as a processor that this could be a star level guy. but I think that the outcome is really high. I don't think that this is a guy who has any like best guard in the league type equity. I don't think that he's going to be like a superstar, but I think that this could be like the 5th or 6th best point guard in the league because he can come off of a screen, he can make the easy pass well enough, and he can really execute an NBA level scheme, and he knows where the guys are going to be, he knows where his off-ball players are, and he can just kind of direct traffic enough, hit enough shots, create enough advantages with the handle that this could be like a real bet. I think so many people were so high on a guy like Dillingham because he could like handle and get into the paint. And I think Philon is just like kind of the actual version of a swing like that. Just a guy who has enough athleticism in key ways to be in the league, can hit enough shots, can drag stuff out, and he actually uses the handle. That's the thing. The handle is not just like, oh, I can come up and hit some like crazy stuff and it looks really aesthetic. It is incredibly functional because he's so quick twitch, right? And I think that twitchiness is truly special. That's a special skill. And he has enough there that I could see star outcomes, but I think he's also really safe because the handle's good. I'm like 95% sure he's going to hit shots in the NBA. Like, I just think he's very obviously a guy with a high floor and a high ceiling, and is the kind of prospect that I've just been kind of building towards philosophically.
So you're doing a really good job selling me. The good basketball player thing is so important. We've been talking about that. This is just a good basketball player. I 100% agree. So there's a couple things. One, I think I disagree. I don't know that I'd call him quick twitch. I think he has really quick hands. I thought his first step was bad. Like, I think he has a bad first step by NBA standards. I think he's he had 5 dunks this year, 0 of them self-created half court, which is, for a guard, not the end of the world by any means. But he is not a particularly explosive 1-foot leaper or 2-foot leaper. He's just kind of, he can dunk off 1 foot or 2 feet, which is great. That shows that there's a sign of, there's a sense of, natural kind of versatility to how he leaps. I think I like his frame, even though he's skinny, like he's strong and he's physical. And that's really good for a point guard. I still don't know what he does if teams switch. If teams have a center that can move and they switch ball screens, I'm just not sure he can create advantage. Now, technically, by the stats, he had 22 isolation possessions this year, and he was really good at them. He shot 73.8% effective field goal percentage on his isolation shots. That's synergies tracking. My personal tracking, I thought, man, this guy's just not creating advantages very well. He goes to a lot of this little bump floater stuff in one-on-one scenarios. Even like teams that are kind of in drop but then switch in the lane. Like, he's just not able to consistently create advantage against those guys. As good as the handle is, he's not super explosive out of it. He's really good at keeping it alive in tight spaces. Like, he's the type of guy, against like the Raptors run and jump that we just saw in the play. I'm really not concerned about like him turning the ball over in those scenarios or anything. Like, he's too smart and the handle's too solid and reactive and comfortable. But there's just nothing I'm like, that's not true. There are a lot of things I'm like, wow, I love that. But I'm really concerned about how he wins as the advantage creator on teams that switch. Now, again, if he is a good enough off-ball player, this does not at all limit his floor. But if we're talking about him as like a lottery guy, if you can't win in isolation as a guard, it's tough. It's tough for me. And I'm just not sure. Now, maybe what he is he's going to end up as like this really good, like bump midi type guy, like the Jalen Brunson, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander type ISO scores. But I feel like those guys have a little bit more equity to get to the rim one-on-one than Philon. And that's my concern. That my biggest concern, and he's not like an elite passer. I think he's a good passer, like at times a really good passer, but he's at least a little bit like kind of tunnel vision-y, right? Kind of like he can see his main action, but nothing else, right? I was just thinking through star comps. So like I went back and I watched Austin Reeves specifically for Philon. And I thought Austin Reeves way better first step at the same time. Now Reeves and I thought Reeves had better touch with his right hand too to like finish in weird scenarios. But that's more the type of guy I think like the Reeves and the Nikhil Alexander Walkers, like those types of guys, and they're just a little bit harder and more sprinkled out. Like I'm just not sure what the star comps are. So you kind of talked about it, but sell me on if he's a star, what is he?
I think I really like the off ball play as well. And I think that's part of it for me is like he can get the switch and then like guess what? Now we can involve this big in a separate action. Like, oh, we'll get the switch. I can't ISO him. Or hey, I actually do really think that the big thing that I really like is that he makes faster decisions than a guy like Mikel Brown, right? Mikel has to hold the ball for a second and then he'll go and do something. If you get the ball to Philon in like a weird half advantage situation, he's way better at just taking and ripping the ball, right? So even if that action is just like, oh, they switched and the big's foot is like half a step out of position, he can take the ball, rip that, create another half advantage, and then move the ball. I think he's just so good at stuff like that. And the decision making is so quick. I don't think he's an elite decision maker. I don't think he's like an elite playmaker, but I think his skills combine in a really unique way that we don't super see. And I do also think some of it is like Alabama was built, like Alabama's system is like built for this kind of player who can make enough good decisions, get far enough into the paint. But I do think Philon is the best version of the Alabama guard we've seen, where it's like, oh, this guy actually makes real decisions with the ball. He's not just like sprinting off of back screens and or pin downs and all this stuff. I think that he kind of combines the Mark Sears and the Javon Quinterly role into one person, which I don't think they've ever had under Nate Oates in like a very real way. And I just sure, okay, he gets the switch and then he drags it back out and then he throws the ball, it comes off a DHO, and maybe they switch it again, but you can't guard that. Like it's a lot harder to guard over and over again, especially with the pace that Philon plays at. And I also just don't really think there's that. Sure, like the Raptors can do it, and like some teams can try in the playoffs. I don't think there's many teams that can truly execute like a real like stop Philon from creating an advantage switch scheme in the playoffs. Especially if you have even one other guy who can kind of like, if you have him with like a Derek Queen, who's like the switch beater, like, oh, he's playing the Knicks, and you have Mikal Bridges guarding him, and you have OG guarding Derek Queen, and then you have them switch. It's like, oh, guess what? Now Queen can absolutely pound Mikal Bridges into the post, right? Like, I do think that he's not this unimpeachable star, and I think that's what's going to keep him from being like the super, super high on my board. But I think he's just good. And I think you can really, the fact that he can execute the Alabama scheme and be like basically the only engine for it. When he's off the floor, Alabama looks like a bullshit team. Like he's just good. And I think he can really execute real, NBA level schemes at the next level. And he's just good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I just think he's really good. I think you're right. I just think he's really good. And I was in the process of this, I was just getting too caught up on other things. The other thing that I think is super underrated is I think he's an elite off-ball mover. Like I think he was not playing with very good passers, but his feel is like a cutter, and like when he is in actions, getting off-ball screens is really good. And I just think all this is like, and we'll talk about the defense in a second, but offensively, I'm just like, this is a great starting point guard for teams that have another guy. Don't draft him thinking he's going to be the guy. But if you told me the Mavs were like, man, I'm at 5 and I just really want Labaron Philon, but yeah, I get it. I get it. Because I also think he could play the 2. He could play in 2-guard lineups. He's big enough. He can guard bigger guys. Like I said, I don't think Nikhil Alexander Walker is like a bad comp by any means. Like I think he's probably better. He's a better ball handler than Nikhil was, but I think they're really similar athletically. Now Nikhil has obviously become this crazy elite shooter. But let's talk about the defense briefly. This was the sell for him once upon a time. I think there's some really good stuff here. I think people that are like, oh man, he's some elite defender are way out over their skis. He's really like his feet really don't move all that well. And the lack of athleticism. I mean, truthfully, like unless you're a crazy strong, like strength-based guy, it's tough to be a really good defender if you're not a crazy athlete in the NBA. That's just the truth. You know, your Joe Ingles of the world, your Andrew Nemhards of the world are one thing because they're just so strong and stout. But that's not him. He also like is weirdly at the center of a lot of like really bad miscommunication, defensive miscues. Like he's not a super consistent defender, but what he is a really elite playmaker at times. Like there are times where he's just like, especially like going to doubles when someone is spinning. His feel for like really hard two-hand digs to just take the ball away from someone. Like there are moments like in terms of the off-ball defense where you can see the Drew Holiday comps. He's not the Drew Holiday type on-ball defender. He's not that big or long. I don't think like maybe big height-wise, but I don't think he's as long. If he develops the strength that Holiday has developed, like there's a world like this is a guy that you want to bet on improving there as he needs to. Like I'm sure he's going to be a perfectly fine to at times really good defensive guard. I would not expect this to be the type of guy where you're like, let's put him on the opposing team's best offensive player. But I could see him being like, we're going to put him on the opposing team's point guard. Sometimes that's Tyrese Halliburton, and sometimes that's Mike Conley or whatever. But I wouldn't. I don't think he's an elite defender, but he has really good instincts. He plays hard. He has a good motor. He never takes plays off on either end. For as much as he had to do, he never felt like he's taking plays off. He never seemed like he was checked out. He always seemed engaged, active, and just really, really effective. But I didn't love the defense. I've always thought that it's kind of an overrated thing. Like, could it develop? Yeah. Like, I think there's some traits there, but again, I think he's more of like a good, consistent contributor to team defense than he is like this like star-making lockdown guy. Would you agree with that, Coop? Or do you have any other thoughts on the defense?
Yeah, I think it's good, not great. I do like the screen nav. I was talking about that a bit with Mikkel. Is like I think he makes the most of his athleticism in a very real way. I think his processing speed, like defensively, like his hands are just so fast, and he will fight through a screen and be a bother in like a very real way. You almost never see these like 30 usage guys, especially like guys running up the floor every single possession, playing at the breakneck pace Alabama plays at. You almost never see them be this level of defender and like have this level of grit. And I love gritty guards. I love them. I can't. It's crack to me. I can't stop myself from loving these kinds of guys. And I think he does enough, like you said, to be a real part of NBA team defense. I think he's smart and quick enough to like not be like an NBA like picked on at the next level. I think he's long enough. I think his hands are fast enough. If you get him in the post, he can like get some poke out steals or like dive on the ball, or like he's decent at executing pre-switches. I actually think this was one of Alabama's worst defensive teams. Like just they were really bad. Like guys like Maletti, even like Bull Bowen, some of these guys who it's like they should be better defenders, just could not execute. And like, I just didn't love a lot of the defensive infrastructure, but I thought he was like good at getting around, moving around. I think with real NBA time and development, I think he could be like a plus guard defender. Not plus plus. He's not going to be a star level guard defender, but does enough to keep himself on the floor, add value there, and not be out of the league.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. So kind of wrapping some things up on Philon. This conversation has been really good for me, I think, because I think I was probably too low on it on my initial watch. The star outcomes for him would be based all around the off the dribble shooting. I think he's a good off the dribble shooter. I worry some about the translation to NBA range with his shooting. Like he's a little bit like kind of tight in his motions and stuff, but he has some really fun space creation moves. I think he's a good catch and shoot shooter too. Just for some numbers, this year off the dribble, he was in the 86th percentile. 37.6 field goal percentage on 133 attempts, 52.3% effective field goal rate. That's a plus 0.17 synergy shot making. It was really good. The year before, not as good, but still fine. In high school, it was less of a weapon for him. It's gotten better. And so there's always a question. There's like, well, do you believe the overall sample that someone just is the shooter they are? Or do you believe in the development process? College is always a small sample size. There's always these questions. 133 off the dribble attempts is not like a crazy amount, but that is about as much as he took the prior 3 seasons that I have on Synergy combined. I'm going to say I buy the development. I think that he's a good off the dribble shooter. I don't have his off the catch numbers in front of me, but I thought he was a good off the catch shooter too. Is he going to be elite? No, he's not going to run. He's not. I don't think he's going to be hitting like crazy movement shots or anything. But there's also a little something where it's like you kind of trust guys that are this high field to get better at shooting. I don't know why that is. That could be like there's definitely some survivorship bias. I could definitely spend some time like looking at it, thinking about it. But like there's just that part of you that's like guys this smart, like you feel like are just going to figure it out. I don't know. Again, I don't know why that is, but he's just really smart. He's I don't think he's like a crazy quick processor, but he's able to slow the game down and play at his pace so well that it kind of doesn't matter. And so again, I think the star outcomes are fairly limited. If he's like a really elite mid-range off the dribble shooter, that's what it would look like. This is the type of guy that could make a sparing all-star game here or there. But I think he's much more likely to be just like a really good starting guard next to better players who takes nothing off the table and just wins. I mean, this is a fairly real bet to be, on the right team, the starting guard on, again, I would kill for this guy to be on the Timberwolves. I would literally like, hell or high water, let's get him on the Timberwolves or the Spurs or the Mavericks. Those are the types of teams I want to see him on. But I think this conversation has convinced me. I think I got to put him above Michael, which would put him at 5 on my board. I just think he's better at basketball, and sometimes I can get so caught up in the ceiling and all these things, and all that's exciting. And I do think that if we look back and Michael's a better player in 10 years, I'm not going to be surprised. There's a reason that they're in the same tier, but the vast majority of outcomes to me are Philon is better. And in that top 10% of Michael, he might be better. Like the top 10 percentile outcomes for both, Michael's better. Michael has way more equity to be like the best player on a top 6 seed or something. But Philon to me has way more. And I think, again, I think Michael can be a perfectly good second, third guy too. But Philon he just feels like such a good fit in the modern NBA right now where things are. And the improvement, the development, the fact that he at times, even though some people like Dayton Holloway or whatever, I'm not super into it. Like he was the competent guy on this team when they really needed it. I just really like Philon. I thought he was a really fun watch. I just, like you said, at a certain point, you got to take guys who are good at basketball and good at a lot of different things, who can defend and can make shots and can be a really plus cutter and off-ball mover and user of screens and just runs a great pick and roll. If the one thing he doesn't do is score really well in isolation against bigs, then he's just got to be on a team with 1 or 2 other guys who can do that. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Coop, where are you at with Philon?
I might be even higher on him than you. I'm kind of debating. I think I'm going to have him in my flawed star bets tier with Flemings and DeBonsa. Maybe that's a little high. Maybe that's a little rich. I think he's pretty young for a sophomore. He's like normal age. Like he's younger than the guy we're going to talk about next, and he's barely older than Mikel Brown, like less than half a year older than Mikel. You already have an insane development track record. I think you have probably a higher floor than both Kingston and DeBonsa. I think you know what he can do, like just to a ridiculous degree. You've seen 2 years in college from him. I don't know. Is that is it crazy to put him at like 3 or 4 on my board here?
This conversation has really illuminated things. Now I'm lower on Flemings than you. I actually think that's something we should do before we move on to Burries. because again, we'll talk about this. I don't think Bryce is really a point guard at all. Only maybe a nominal sense in the NBA. But I think that we should talk about how these guards kind of all rank, all these, lottery guards. And we should just kind of, so I'll go first because again, I'm throwing you on the spot here. But I still have Wagler as like the best lottery guard kind of on his own. Again, I have him above DeBonsa right now. Those two are really close, him and DeBonsa, but at 3 and 4 on my board. And I just think now I'm not counting Peterson as a point guard really. If we were, then he's a whole tier above Wagler. But I do think Wagler is a point guard, and I think that he is the best star bet who also has some okay distributed outcomes. I mean, the floor is still really low, but all these guys, I think, truthfully have low floors. There's no one who I am 100% sold that they are just will succeed in the NBA. Really in this whole class, other than Cam Boozer, like I think they all have fairly reasonably low floors. And so Wagler's my favorite. I just think his special skill is the most special, but he's also smart and makes plays and just kind of wins. Then I have a tier break. I have these three guys on the same tier: Philon, Brown, and Flemings. I think I'm going to stay in that order for right now. I'm lower on Flemings than you, and I would say probably most people. I think the long two heavy diet, the good defense, but not maybe the most valuable type of defense in my opinion for these little guards. The questions I have about his ability to score at the rim. And again, exactly what the star outcomes look like for him are a little bit of a question for me. And I also think that Flemings, even though he's a really good passer, is maybe the least point guard in terms of his scoring of all these guys. He kind of feels like I mentioned this, like my stylistic comp for him is more of like a Donovan Mitchell. Well, Donovan Mitchell is always had to play with another ball handling guard. And I do worry about that some with Flemings, like the handle just kind of being weird and not great. So that's why I'm the lowest on him. But him and Michael are really close. I think Philon I would have above those two, probably with some comfort, because I just think he's so safe. And I don't think those guys' star outcomes are so much higher than Philon's that I want to put them above him. I do think Wagler's star outcome is way higher than Philon's. That's why I'm okay with there being a tier break. And then down below them in another tier, I have A-Cup, who I just think has the least interesting star outcomes, even though there are star outcomes, and also I think far and away the lowest floor. So that's kind of where I'm at with these lottery guards. Coop, do you have them all ranked? Like, do you feel comfortable sharing that?
I think I'm gonna keep Kingston at the top. I think the floor with the grit is just. I think it's too that plus like the ceiling from his athleticism. I think if he can phase out some of these long twos and keep some of the pick and roll passing and play on a real spaced NBA floor. I think his ceiling is the highest out of all these guys, other than maybe Mikel, but his floor is also higher. I think I will have Philon at 5. I don't know. I think I'm psyching myself out. I think I like him more than DeBonsa, but I think I'm kind of too deep in my own head after things in the past. I worry I'm getting too high on him, especially because at the end of the day, he is like a 6'4" skinny guard. Like the floor is great, but he's not like an elite athlete, and it's hard to DeBonsa is going to get chance after chance after chance. DeBonsa will get drafted, and even if he stinks, he's going to stick around the league until he figures something out. If Philon is not good in like 3 seasons, he'll be traded to the Bulls, and it'll be miserable, and I'll hate my life. But I do still really buy his floor. I do think that the ceiling outcomes, as much as it is like, he's still the same tier. I still believe in like, take the great player, take the guy who's good. That's why I have him above a Wagler and a Mikel. I think he's the grit, plus he's already like better. I have been thinking about moving Wagler into that tier with Flemings. I've been thinking about our discussion on him, and I don't think I'm going to move him above anybody, but I think putting him in the tier above Mikal and then going Kingston, LeBaron, Wagler, tier break to Mikal, tier break to Acuff. Uh, I think that would make me pretty happy. I think I'd feel really good about that. Especially because I do think Wagler's floor, dude, it's so good. It's so high. At the end of the day, he's just good, even if there's athletic concerns. And I do think he's a demonstrably worse athlete than Philon. He is also just good.
He definitely is. Even though I actually think Wagler might have a better first step than Philon, but I do think he's generally a worse athlete, especially laterally. I mean, it's not even close. So no, I think that's all great. I'm happy with that. I'm happy we did all these guards straight in a row, even though it feels weird. It feels weird that I'm gonna have, truthfully 4.5, because I said that I thought there was a world that Peterson really should be a point guard, even though he's kind of not. Like 4.5 guards in my lottery feels like a lot. But I think this is a legitimately really good guard class. This is not just like, well, these are the best players of a shitty supply. It's kind of what I assumed I would feel. Like I assumed I was going to be really low on Michael. I assumed Labaron would be a non-lottery guy for me. I think all these guys are true lottery guys. Michael's maybe the one I have the most questions about. Kingston is the one I'm the most out on the limb being low on, which worries me. But I don't know. I just like these guys. I think they're all really good guards with legitimate starting outcomes. Even if I think only 1 or 1.5, like I said, depending on what you want to call Peterson, really feel like true star bets to me. Like, again, my lottery tier is more for I see real positive starting upside here more than it is stars. And those are all guys that I'm just like, I think they're just going to start and be good. Like I said, Kingston and Michael, I have maybe the most concerns about that. But